What's up, family? What's up, family? Welcome to my YouTube channel. As you know, I am Nizzle the Artist. I'm so glad you decided to watch this video because this is an eye opener for anybody and any black woman that wants to enter into this new world of divesting. I think this video has something to do with um, her husband, her white husband, deceiving her in some kind of way. But I'll let you just watch the video and you can figure it out from here. Here we go.
Everyone suspected that this woman stole this little girl. Years later, the shocking truth. When Melissa Gomez and her husband James arrived in the small town of Saavedra, everyone was shocked because they were an interracial couple between a white man and a woman of color, who also lived in the richest and most privileged area of the city. For this reason, the people of the town looked at them with bad eyes. No matter their social position or achievements in life, they were all overshadowed by their skin color. The situation negatively affected the couple. James, Melissa's husband, was an important and influential businessman who had worked all his life to achieve a good financial status. Melissa, on the other hand, was a woman from a good family, the daughter of immigrants. She had come to Chile thanks to a scholarship to study medicine at the best university in the country. It was during their time at university that the two met and quickly fell in love. They spent years of great happiness while building a huge company together. However, there was something that filled the young woman with insecurities, as she knew nothing about her in-laws, and every time she asked her husband about his childhood, the man seemed to hide everything about his family. This fact filled Melissa with intrigue and distrust, and she confronted her husband on more than one occasion. He would only calm her down by saying that he did not have a good relationship with his family. Melissa decided to put her doubts aside and concentrate on forming a life with James. In this way, the years passed. Everything seemed perfect in Melissa's life. The couple received a piece of news that surprised him a lot. It turns out that James's parents had died in a terrible car accident a few days ago, leaving their only son as heir to all their great fortune, including the huge mansion of the deceased. After hearing the news,
Now, doesn't this sound familiar? If you notice, the relationship always starts off perfect. It always starts off perfect when you're in these relationships, male or female, are always here. It starts off perfect. But the majority of these interracial relationships tend to always end in tragedy. Let's check out the rest of the video.
Melissa was very saddened as she never got to meet her in-laws. James, on the other hand, lived in a constant depression, suffering in silence the death of his parents, but refusing to talk about them with his wife. Seeing this, Melissa went to great lengths to cheer her husband up, but nothing seemed to be enough to cheer James up, until the day she discovered him in his room, looking at old photographs of him as a child while crying. It was then that Melissa talked to her husband and suggested moving to the old town of his childhood, to his parents' huge mansion, because maybe that would help him to move on and overcome his inner traumas. So they both agreed to start from scratch in a small town far from the city. They sold their apartment in the capital and arranged everything in their company to work remotely. Days later, they settled in the rural town of Saavedra, a town in Chile with many natural resources. Unfortunately, this picturesque little town was going through a period of poverty and unemployment, causing an increase in crime.
Hello guys, are you looking for an
Sorry about that.
warm
I gotta get
Western
what they call that, YouTube skip.
place or spending
Sorry about
time
that.
with your kids?
Let's continue to watch the
Yes.
video.
Fortunately for the people, James's parents' mansion was located in the wealthy part of town in a residential complex full of luxurious homes and wealthy families, where peace reigned and people seemed oblivious to the reality of poor people. The first few days after the move, everything was rosy. The couple was happy and James was smiling again as he longed to be back in his hometown after so long. However, there was something that Melissa didn't like, and that was that she seemed to be the only person of color in the whole neighborhood. All of her neighbors were white-skinned people with racist personalities, a situation that made Melissa very uncomfortable, and she had to endure all the
Now, why anybody would want to subject themselves to this kind of uh, scrutiny and rejection, I do not know. I just don't understand why you want to go somewhere where you're just not accepted. You're just never going to be accepted. That's just a fact. No matter how much you love that person, you're just not going to get accepted. It's just not an acceptable thing, and you're just going to run into hangups. That's why, to me, these relationships are just not worth it. Male or female, they're just not worth it. Let's continue.
The offensive comments and looks of contempt every time she left the house. This whole situation made Melissa very sad, but she was willing to put up with it for her husband. As time went by, the couple began to adapt to their new life, but there was something they still lacked, and that was that they both wanted a child more than anything else in the world. For a whole year, they tried to conceive, but every pregnancy test they took came back negative. In the end, the young woman decided to look for a new alternative, and James found an excellent doctor on the internet who specialized in artificial insemination treatments. At first, Melissa did not seem very convinced, but after a long conversation with her husband, they both agreed to go to this doctor's office and perform the expensive insemination procedure. Fortunately, everything went as planned, and a few months after she started seeing the doctor, Melissa was finally able to get pregnant. And to add to their joy, 3 months later they found out that they were expecting a baby girl, a little girl named.
I also want to bring up something that a lot of people are not talking about, and that's the fact that white males are starting to have trouble reproducing. The reproduction genes of the white male is is starting to fail, and I think that has a reason to do with the fall in the population decrease of white people globally. Okay, let's continue.
Named Angelica, who would serve to bring James and Melissa's marriage back together. Sadly, all this joy was to be short-lived, for one morning while her husband was away on a business trip, Melissa was alone at home going through the mail when a very strange letter caught her attention. It was a letter signed by the doctor who treated them during the artificial insemination process and addressed to James. Melissa did not want to go through her husband's correspondence, but something in that letter gave her a very bad feeling. So she decided to read the contents of that envelope, and what she read changed her life forever. Dear Mr. James, I am pleased to inform you that the process of selection and alteration of the genetic material was a success. The child will not be born with any genetic disorder and will have the appearance you specified to me during our meeting. White skin, blue eyes, and straight blonde hair. This letter was to remind you of our monthly settlement payment of $30,000 plus the extra amount for risks and possible legal consequences, as I remind you that eugenics is punishable under the law of our country. Melissa.
So basically, he made a deal with this doctor, you know what I'm saying, behind this, you know what I'm saying, black woman's back, you know what I'm saying, because he wanted to have a baby with straight hair and blue eyes, you know what I'm saying. And you also going to hear something that's going to be quite disturbing that this doctor is going to say, you know what I'm saying, because basically he's going to say that now that the child is born with straight hair and blue eyes genetically, that the child, excuse me, is not a defect. And you're going to hear that in this right here. So basically saying if, you know, you would have went with the regular, you know what I'm saying, genetics, you know what I'm saying, of an African American child, you would have had defects. So basically he's saying that now you're going to have perfect genes and you're not going to have all of these problems because you're not really having a genetic black baby, you know what I'm saying, because the doctor went in there and changed all of that, you know what I'm saying, in his practice. Okay, let's continue.
Melissa could not attest to what she had just read. She had been duped by her own husband and an unscrupulous doctor who had played God for money. The young woman was very upset, and before she reached her husband, she threw her belongings onto the street. When James finally arrived home, he saw a huge mess of clothes and personal belongings lying on the sidewalk. He immediately attempted to enter the house only to be greeted by Melissa, who was accompanied by a police officer. Before he could react, James was handcuffed and taken to the police station for questioning. He was about to receive a 14-month jail sentence for complicity in an immoral act. in addition to several $1 million in restitution for Melissa. For his part, James's hired doctor pleaded guilty to medical malpractice and narrowly escaped jail time, but he will never again be able to practice medicine anywhere in the world. When detectives in the case asked James why he had planned such a heinous and immoral act, he only replied what he did not want his daughter to be a brown-skinned person, as his late parents never agreed with his relationship with Melissa solely because she was a woman of color. For that reason, James believed he would honor their memory by giving them the granddaughter they wanted so much, one who was white with blue eyes and blonde hair. After his statements, the authorities said that James was an unfit person to be a father and gave full custody to Melissa. In this way, the months passed, and the young mother gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Angelica.
So basically, as you see, James did not go to jail. And just another case of white privilege, you know what I'm saying, in full effect. Because technically, he was supposed to go to jail and be charged, you know what I'm saying, with genetically tampering, you know what I'm saying, with the child in that way. But, you know, once again, you know what I'm saying, Chad always gets off. Let's go.
A beautiful girl who looked very much like her mother but differed in skin color. However, the bond that united them was greater than that. Melissa had kept half of her ex-husband's possessions after the trial, and for a time lived with her daughter in that mansion in Saavedra. The malicious and racist comments from her neighbors were not long in coming. Throughout the year, the neighborhood gossipers made hurtful comments about the poor woman and her daughter, calling Melissa crazy and even a child thief. On more than one occasion, they tried to call the police to report her for kidnapping, only to be laughed at by the police department, making a fool of themselves for their ignorance. Fortunately, Melissa managed to sell the house and move back to the capital to start a new life with her little Angelica. This story teaches us that a mother's love is above any race or skin color, because God is just and protects all his disciples equally.
Now, this is what you have to deal with when you enter into these relationships. This is one of the number one reasons why me personally, have decided to be with a black woman and to have black children and to marry a black woman and to live with a black woman for the rest of my life, is because I don't want to have to deal with that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of children are rejected, you know what I'm saying? Mixed children are rejected, you know what I'm saying, by their grandparents. And this guy's fear in trying to keep their honor, you know what I'm saying, which is crazy to me. Why are you trying to keep their honor? If this is your child, you should be proud of your child, however your child comes out. But he went to the point where he modified this child in order to honor, you know what I'm saying, his mother and father that passed away, because he knew personally they never want him to have, you know what I'm saying, a child of color. You know what I'm saying? So as we all know, and I tell people all the time, I say mixed people are black. They are genetic negroids. And a lot of these grandparents know better. See, some of these young people don't know why their grandparents reject these children, because they know that they are negroid. Anybody knows that the negroid gene is dominant. Okay? It's dominant. Okay? It's just like if you put a drip of oil inside of clear water, that water is going to then there turn black, because that's just how potent the negroid gene is. And a lot of these people, you know what I'm saying, these grandparents and the older people know. That's why they created the one drop rule, because the one drop rule is real, people. Genetically, it only takes one drop to basically change the whole European genetic. That's all it takes, is one drop, okay? So basically, yeah, you are mixed, you are a negroid, period. You carry the negroid gene, you are black. So get rid of all of that, I am a mulatto and I'm this, and no, you're not. You are a negroid, genetic negroid with light skin. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and as always, one love.